All right, here we are with Alex Alonso from Street TV. If you don't already know, he was present in the courtroom in the trial for the in the courtroom for the trial of Nipsey Hussle and Eric Holder. The man who killed Eric Holder is the man who killed Nipsey Hussle. If you don't already know, and you've been there covering it every day. So let's start from the verdict. He was found guilty of first degree murder. And what were the other counts that he was found guilty of besides first degree murder?
Yeah, in addition to the first degree murder of Nipsey Hussle, he was also found guilty of attempted voluntary manslaughter against Kerry Latham, Shermy Villanueva.
Hmm.
And then he was also found guilty of a felon in possession of a gun. And then also it was found true the gun allegations for those three main counts. I believe that's count one, count two, and count four. Count two would have been one of the other victims, and count four would be the other one. I forget what order they're in, but Shermai Villanueva and Kerry Latham were also two additional counts. And then all three of those counts, Nipsey, Shermai, and Kerry all follow had a gun enhancement, and all those gun enhancements were found to be true too.
Wow. So, and what are the total years that he's facing? Because hasn't been sentenced yet. I just want to make that clear for the people. People think that he just because he was found guilty, he's been sentenced, but sentencing won't happen until September. So, what is the total that he could be looking at? Amount of years that he's looking at?
Well, it depends on how the judge wants to sentence him, because there's a variety of different ways he can do it in terms of giving him consecutive sentences or concurrent sentences, or he could run it a combination of ways. He could run the 20 well for killing Nipsey Hussle's 25 years, and it's another 25 years for the gun allegation. So if he runs those consecutively, we're talking about 50 years right off the rip.
Wow.
And that doesn't take into consideration the other guilty verdicts. But let's say he doesn't have to run those two 25-year sentences consecutively. He also has 6 years for the attempted voluntary manslaughter. In addition to those two convictions, there's a gun enhancement on those. So it all depends on if he runs them consecutively or concurrently. But let's just say he runs every single sentence consecutively. 25 plus 25 plus 6 plus 6, and then double that for the gun. That's another 12, and then it's a year and a half for the felon in possession of a weapon. So we're talking about 50 plus 20, 50 plus 24. That's 74. I think he can possibly get 75 years to 80 years in prison if the judge decided to run it all consecutively.
Wow. Jesus Christ.
And that's also with a life sentence. So that's the killing of Nipsey Hussle has an L on it. So that's going to be a 25 to life or 50 to life sentence. So it doesn't even matter, because the California Department of Corrections can keep him in prison for as long as they want to keep him in prison. They can just deny him at board. I mean, he won't be eligible for board, until he's an elderly man. And even at that point, the CDC can turn him down.
Wow. Jesus Christ. Something that just happened, what, in a matter of just less than 5 minutes, gets you almost life in prison, huh?
Yeah, it is. I was asked before, was Eric did Eric Holder have any emotions in the court? And from where I was sitting, he was pretty motionless. But when I looked at the footage that we got from the verdict, there was a couple times he seemed to be nodding his head up and down, no, like he can't believe it or he's disappointed.
Right.
So there was I would say a slight bit of reflection when when the clerk was reading the verdicts back. So from where I was sitting, it was hard to see. But yeah, if you look at the video, which I just posted the entire verdict from beginning to end, and there's a tiny bit of reflection if you pay attention on Eric Holder's. Well, I can't say his face because it's kind of his profile from the back.
Right.
You really can't see his face. So yeah, maybe it's going through his mind that he messed up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. That we actually saw some sort of you know motion from
You
him.
noticed
Or sorry,
you noticed that when he was
yeah,
getting when they were reading the verdict.
yeah, he shook his head a couple of times. And it's crazy because it's like I'm asking to myself, like, is he aware of what's going on right now, or is he totally blank to the situation? You know, or maybe he's like accepted his fate. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. At some point, I'm sure this guy's gonna speak and talk about it, but right now we have no idea.
Okay, let me ask you this because I skimmed through the footage to when they were reading his verdict. Now, did they read the verdict two times because they had to all the jurors had to agree? Can you break that down? I'm sorry, I'm a little confused on that.
Well, we as a spectator in the audience, we didn't get to see what the verdict sheets looked like, but apparently there was a typo on a couple of the counts. And when there's a point in the verdict video, if you watch it, where the district attorney he asked to speak to the judge, and they have a sidebar, and apparently they identify a typo. So they weren't sure if that typo had an impact on the jury's verdict. So then there's a slight break where the judge says, "Hey, there's a typo on these verdict sheets. I'm going to correct them. But then I want you guys to go back in the room and make sure that this correction of the typo doesn't change your verdicts. And if they don't, then we'll just reread that part." So the jury went off for a couple of minutes. They came back, and the jury four-person said that the typo that was corrected had no bearing. They didn't change their verdicts. So that part of the verdict was reread. So it's a little unusual. I think the judge even said this has never happened to him before. He said I think he characterized it as this is like a 1 in 100 year mistake that was made on a verdict form, but it was a typo that was corrected, and then the jury said, "No, this doesn't change our verdict." So that's why it was reread a second time.
Maybe it's a conspiracy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, maybe it's a conspiracy. It's never going to end. I mean, they're still talking about Elvis Presley. So,
Right.
Nipsey is a recent victim of this, but Elvis Presley, I think he died in 1977 and they're still talking about it.
Exactly, exactly. I do want to let me ask you this. What something that I always wondered was Eric's his attorney made this defense of heat of passion, but I'm not sure if this is hearsay, but doesn't Eric have some sort of like mental issue background or some sort of like history? Why couldn't he use that as a defense? You would think that that would have worked out better for him.
I don't think anyone knows if Eric Holder has a documented mental history. Now, of course, he's in the county jail wearing the yellow tops, which suggests that he's in some sort of medical facility or section of the jail. But prior to March of 2019, I'm unaware, it hasn't been presented to the court that this guy had a documented history of mental illness. So it doesn't matter what he's going through right now since he's been incarcerated. For the defense or for an attorney to use his history of mental illness, it has to be documented. You just
Right.
can't come in there and just say, "Oh, by the way, my client for the last decade has had mental illness issues." The court's going to say, "Where's the documentation? Which doctors has he seen?
Mhm.
Where is the evidence that this guy has been diagnosed?" And so far, nothing like that has ever come up.
Hmm. Right, right. Can I'm sure people are wondering, can Eric appeal this? Would there be an appeal? Do you think?
There's going to be an absolute appeal, just like everyone else who gets convicted of a murder. There's going to be an appeal, and it's going to go to the Sacramento, the California appellate attorneys will review it, and it'll take a couple of years, probably. And it won't be just one appeal. There'll probably be a couple appeals, in the next few years. So be on the lookout. And those appeals, for those who want to know, they'll all be published on the internet. So you could check that out when those happen in the next couple of years.
Right, right. Wow, yeah, because that's something that people will be like, hey, it will just appeal, and maybe they'll just win that appeal.
Well, the only thing he's going to appeal is the first degree murder conviction against Nipsey Hussle. The rest of the convictions, I'm sure um, he is going to embrace those because he actually got voluntary attempted voluntary manslaughter on the other two victims, and they were looking at, the prosecution was looking at first degree attempted murder, which is a severe sentence. I believe that would be another 15 plus 50. That would be another 30 years,
Sure.
and then you add the gang enhancement. That would have been another 60 years on top of the 50 years. That would have been 100. That's why some people say he can get 110 years. That's how it adds up to 110 years if he was found guilty of the first degree attempted murders of Shermai Villanueva and Carrie Latham, because that would have been about 60 years with the gun enhancement.
Wow. Jeez. Okay. We after the verdict was read, I saw that there was the prosecutor gave a statement. He took some questions, and I know he had said that he had never spoke to anyone in Nip's family, that he's tried to. But it's interesting that I hear him say that, because you would think it'd be, he's a prosecutor. You would think he would get in touch with somebody, but it just makes you wonder, because Black Sam did an interview saying that he is in touch with a lawyer, keeping him up with updates. So it just, what are your thoughts about that?
Since the beginning, the family has not cooperated with this investigation. They didn't want anything to do with it, and they stuck to it. Black Sam obviously doesn't mind talking, because he did an interview for our local news here with Pat Harvey, and he was very forthcoming, and he even admitted it. Like, we have no interest in going to this trial and being a part of it. So, that's their choice. I don't really want to pass judgment on their lack of participation. Perhaps they're still grieving. Perhaps they're just, they don't feel like there's any purpose for them to be coming to court. Some families want to be in that courtroom. Some parents want to see their child's killer get convicted, but this is a situation where they weren't interested in doing that.
Right, right. I can understand. What I don't know. You had asked the prosecutor a great question. That was the tape that we all been. I've been kind of stressing over. Is just that marathon tape above the camera, right above the marathon store, which would be the closest angle to what went down. And he had said he doesn't know, or he wouldn't know. Maybe if it was just live streamed, it wouldn't. There is no tape.
He didn't know if there was actual recorded video, or if it was just being streamed from the cameras to a monitor, which is possible. I used to have a security system in one of my other studios where I had a 4 camera setup, and I had a monitor that showed all 4 cameras, but I never recorded anything. It was just so I could look at the monitor, I could look at my car in the parking lot, I could look at the front door, but I never recorded anything. So it's quite possible they had a system like that recorded. According to Cowboy, that's what the system didn't record. But according to the detective, he believed that there was perhaps a DVR that was capturing the footage. At this point, I have no idea, but it doesn't really matter, because the trial wasn't about the cameras. It wasn't about whether or not Eric Holder shot him. It wasn't about any of that, because we already have footage of Eric Holder at the scene. He's
Right.
in the Master Burger in color, and it's stamped like 3 p.m. or something. We already have footage of him in the parking lot with 2 people saying that's Eric Holder. We got footage of a woman that drove the car, Bernita Nicholson, that said she drove Eric Holder there. So the cameras are good for trying to determine who's who,
Hmm.
but we know everyone that was there, so that's not an issue. So it wouldn't have made this case. It wouldn't have broke this case that with that footage. So this whole case rested on that 4-minute conversation between Eric Holder and Nipsey Hussle. But yeah, we would have liked to seen that footage, but at the same time, it wouldn't have changed the direction of this case.
I know me and Coop be talking about this we were talking about this last night, and how there was so much people who turned out for Nipsey Hussle's funeral, for, you know what I mean, for, and it's crazy how, like, Nobody came to the court case, like not the fans. You know what I mean? As so much. If you look back at that footage of the funeral, that the you know what I mean, that they right in the, they have the casket in the vehicle, whatever they call it, in the hearse, and you see that much people come out to see that, you would think he would receive that type of love or that type of concern at this trial, and that wasn't there.
There was certainly a lack of presence in this trial. I will say that the Nation of Islam was there every single day. Sister Charlene was covering for the final call, but in addition to her, brothers from the nation were there just about every single day. They definitely, showed up for Nipsey's case. There were very few people that knew Nip there. I mean, Cowboy, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a small circle of people with Cowboy, but for the most part, it was pretty empty. When I walked out the courthouse after the verdict was read, there was a big protest across the street at City Hall, and for a quick second, I thought, "Oh, wow, this is people happy for the guilty verdict for Nipsey Hussle."
Right.
Then I find out it was a protest for Roe versus Wade being overturned. It was a
Right.
women's right protest across the street. So I was expecting to see some sort of presence because, like as you said, AG, that damn funeral procession, that was one of the most deepest, the
Mm-hmm.
most crowded things that I've ever witnessed. So you would have just thought, man, when this guy goes to trial for killing Nipsey, there's going to be people in the hallway, in the courtroom, outside, on the steps, and it just didn't happen. And I really, I can't really explain it. I have to think about it. I have to ponder on it, and tap in with me a couple months from now. Maybe I'll have an answer that makes more sense to that.
Right. Definitely.
Definitely September 15th. I'll be in court for the sentencing. Um, we'll see if Judge Jack washes him up, as they say, gives
Right.
them all day, as they say, or as some of the youngsters like to say, getting them football numbers.
Right.
Uh, we know that McKinney is going to request that 50 years right off the rip.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and if he gets that 50 to life, that's it. It's over. It's over for Eric if he gets that 50 to life. If he gets that 25 to life, he's got a chance. He's still 32 years old. That how old does that take him to? That 25 to life takes him into his 50s, possibly early 60s when you add on the other counts. So he can get out of prison when he's in his 60s. But if he gets that 50 with the L on it, that's it.
Uh, if he survives prison.
Yeah, if he survives. If he survives. Well, thanks for tapping in, AGTV. I appreciate you. You guys are always welcome to collaborate and connect with the Street TV team.
Thank you.
And thanks for all your attention that you gave to Nipsey Hussle trial, and for all the interest, being that you are not here in Los Angeles. And it's good to know that people around the country still have an interest in what's going on here in Los Angeles.